Okay, so this is just a short video to review the mid-segment of our triangle. It's a segment that connects the midpoints of two sides of our triangle. And two facts about our mid-segment is that it's parallel to the third side and it's half as long as our third side. So these two pieces of info are what we're going to use to kind of solve for x. So we'll draw and kind of label the parts in this triangle here. So let's say M is a midpoint of AB. So that means it makes two congruent parts of our sides here. And N is our midpoint of BC. So we have two congruent segments there. Since MN, this guy, is our mid-segment, we'll label which side is parallel to that mid-segment and what's going to be half as long. So MN is going to be parallel to the third side, and we can see that it's the third side because M is part of one of our sides, N is in the middle of our second side, so the third side that it's parallel to is AC. And we'll label that. So these two are parallel. And since MN is our mid-segment, it's also half of that third side again. It's half of AC. And you can think of it the other way. If you don't like taking half of something, you can think of it as 2 of MN. So if we double MN, our mid-segment, it's going to be equal to that third side, AC. And then, so we'll practice identifying parallel segments. So our parallel segments are going to be our mid-segment RS and the third side, so not including, those two sides, DF. So we're going to say RS is parallel to DF. We can also identify our mid-segment here, RT, and that's going to be parallel to the third side of our triangle, EF. And lastly, ST is going to be parallel to our third side, DE. So first we're identifying our parallel segments, and that's actually going to help us decide which sides are half or double, which sides are double our mid-segment. So let's look at these right here. So they're telling us that T, U, and B are midpoints. So if U is a midpoint of QR, that means QU and UR are congruent. If T is a midpoint of QS, that means QT and TS are congruent. And if B is a midpoint, it's halfway. So that means RB is congruent to SB. And that's going to help us find our parts and the perimeter of our triangles here. So before I even find this info, I kind of like filling in the missing pieces. So if U is the midpoint, QU is 30, that also means that UR is 30. It also gives me info about the whole thing. QR, that's 60. If RS is 40 and B is the midpoint, it's like halfway. That means that this is 20. And this is also 20. And now we can look at our mid-segments and how they're going to relate to the sides of our big triangle. TU is parallel to RS, and it's also half of RS. And RS is 40, so TU is 20. UB is here. It is parallel to QS, so that means it's half of QS. Looks like QS is 50, so it's half of QS, so it's 25. And then QR, we actually have that labeled, it's 60. So the perimeter of our triangles is adding up all of our sides. TUB is a small triangle. And I know what TU is from before. It's 20. UB is 25. And if I look at TB, TB is parallel to QR, so it's half of QR. So half of QR is 30. And so if I add those up, find the perimeter, it's 75. And then for the big triangle, it's 50, 60, and 40 added together. So it's 150. So that's the idea. Always thinking about, half. The midsegment is half of our long side of our triangle. And so we're going to use that here. So I know that this is the midsegment because of these little tick marks saying this is a midpoint, that's a midpoint. So it's going to be the midsegment is equal to half of the side that it's parallel to. We'll call it our long side for right now. So the midsegment is 3x, and it's equal to half of 18. Same thing with this guy. These are midpoints because of those tick marks, so 2x is equal to half the long side. And it's okay to get decimals here. Get 2x equal to 12.5, divide by 2, x is 6.25. Depending on the question, sometimes they'll have you plug it back in or not, so make sure to read the directions. The last two of these types, same process. The midsegment, the one connecting the midpoints, 3x minus 7 is equal to half the long side. In this case, we have to distribute. So it's half of 2x, so x, and then half of 10 is 5. We'll subtract x, add 7, we get 2x is equal to 12, x is equal to 6. And lastly, for these types, midsegment, connecting the midpoints, so it's the 3x is equal to half the long side, 4x plus 20. And distribute, we'll get half of 4x of 2x, half of 20, 10. So x is equal to 10. So the idea is you just have to make sure you're always identifying which one should be the shorter one. So you make sure not to take half of that one because that is the shorter one. You don't want to take half of it. Our last piece is looking at the angles and the sides. We can start with BD and AE and then work our way up to the angles. BD, and look at that, BD is our midsegment, it's 12. So what would AE be? Well, 12 is equal to half of whatever AE is. So if 12 is the half, we'll double it and get 24. Then if we work backwards for the second one, AE is 135. That means BD is equal to half of AE, right? Because BD is the shorter one. So I'm going to plug in half of 135. And I will get 67.5. And then on to our angles. These are going to be important. Finding the angles here. We've got CBD. This angle is 56. And I need CAE, so this angle. What we have to keep in mind is that we have parallel lines here. And when we have parallel lines, there's special angles that we take into account. We had like our alternate interior, corresponding, same side interior. And in this case, 56, this angle, CBD, is actually congruent to CAE because we have corresponding angles and they are congruent. It's the ones where it was the position. Like if I were just to slide that angle down, it's like, it looks like the same top right of our special angle pairs. So this is going to be 56. And then BDE is this angle over here. It's 160. AED is this angle. And they are actually on the same side and in the interior of my parallel lines. They are our same side interior angles. And those ones are supplementary. So this is going to add to 180. So it's 160 plus blank AED, whatever that angle is, should add up to 180. So AED is 20. That's a little review of our first section.